Hi, all, and welcome to episode 22 of Plain Speaking Sanjiv. Today, I'll speak to you about the COVID crisis and the impact it is having on the aviation industry. This is a topic that is being discussed extensively on webinars and various other forums, but it has been requested by my viewers on this platform as well that I share my thoughts. I'll keep my thoughts at a more macroeconomic level, at a more industry wide level, as to what this crisis means for the airlines and what the outlook is. Essentially, as a background, there has never been a situation since the Wright brothers first flew in 1903 where aviation has come to a grinding halt in much of the world. In India, of course, there has been no commercial flights, no commercial passenger flights since March 24th. We're hoping that on May 17th some flying will resume. But I want to be very clear that it's not going to be a magical date or a magical switch that is switched on May 17th or June 1st or whatever the date it is. It is going to take many months, some people say a year or more, before flying goes back to the level it was at last year. Even if one out of four passengers decides not to fly, that means a 25% reduction in volume, which means a 25% reduction in revenue. And this is for an industry which, in its best of times, is happy to have a 10% margin. Usually it's much less than that, 4%, 5%. So even if one in four persons decides not to fly, that is a 25% reduction in the traffic. The impact on the aviation industry is just nothing short of catastrophic. Uh, it is a very high fixed cost industry. Aviation has a situation where it has the costs of a heavy manufacturing industry, very high fixed costs, very high asset base, aircraft and infrastructure everywhere. But it has a revenue model of a service industry. What that means is that the moment you stop operating a flight, your revenues fall to zero, and that revenue is lost forever. In a traditional manufacturing industry, like automobiles for example, if you stop manufacturing cars for a month, it doesn't mean that revenue is lost forever. It means that the revenue is largely deferred because the cars don't instantly vaporize from the showroom. They're still there, they will be sold. People buy cars once in 5 years, once in 10 years, and they will buy the car after 3 months or 6 months, even 1 year. But the cars that are in inventory still have value and will be sold. So while the revenue production may not be happening, the revenue potential which is stored in inventory still exists. In airlines, it is completely different because the minute you stop production, which is you stop flying, your revenue is gone. There is no airline seats available on store shelves that, oh, okay, it doesn't matter, you didn't fly yesterday, yesterday's flight will be sold tomorrow. There's no such thing. It's permanently gone. So that is the reason why aviation all around the world has been such a top priority for governments, because with such high fixed costs and with revenues dropping to zero instantly, survival of the industry comes into question. Around the world, governments have now provided more than $100 billion of aid, some of it in equity, some of it as loans and various other things. And they've done this because aviation is a very critical infrastructure industry. You cannot expect economies to recover, business to get back to normal, if half the airlines of the world are grounded or stopped functioning, cease to exist. It is a very real possibility with every passing day that there will be some airlines that don't make it back. We all hope that that number is small, but already there have been several airlines that have ceased operations, and with every passing day, the risks become higher for the remaining. The situation for aviation, it's like the virus itself. It'll first take the weak, and then it'll come after the strong. It's a tsunami that can, no one can escape it. Yes, of course, the weak airlines will fall first, but you don't want to be left with just one airline or two airlines, because then the whole economy and consumers suffer. And in fact, there's a situation where in a couple of months' time, even the very strongest airlines will not be able to survive, which is why some of the most profitable airlines in the world, some of the airlines with the strongest balance sheets, whether it's United or American or Delta or British Airways or Lufthansa, are all getting some kind of government aid, because even with their balance sheets and with their high levels of profitability, survival is not assured. The other thing I want us all to keep in mind is that once flights resume, hopefully May 17th in India, maybe June 1st, again, it is not as if the minute lockdown is lifted and flights resume, good days are back again and that, the worst is over. In fact, there's a scenario in which once flights resume, airlines could make even more losses, because the demand has to come back and operating flights also cost money. So until sufficient demand comes back, even resuming of flights is no guarantee or no relief as such. It is just the first step in a very long drawn process that the industry will have to go through in order to make it back to some sense of normalcy. And once flights resume, the cash burn increases further. And until the revenues can come back, until the demand comes back, the need for assistance actually grows. And in fact, the chances of airlines not making it once flights resume increases until demand comes back. It is very possible that there are some airlines in the world today that are effectively bankrupt, out of operation. You don't see it only because they're not operating, so they're parked. You don't know they're parked alive and healthy or parked almost dead. You don't see it because lessors are not able to come and claim their aircraft. The reality will only hit us once we start operating again. Everybody is in this together. There is no one who can escape the risks and the threats posed by the pandemic. So all we can do as industry people is hope for the best, is conserve cash as much as possible, hope that governments around the world come to our assistance. We need to keep in mind that airlines are like the tap, they're the root of the tree, through which a lot of the business flows into the travel industry, into the hotel sector, into the economy in general, into buses, into taxis, and down to the daily worker. The airlines bring in the tourists, bring in the travelers, which then populate and create revenues for the rest. Which is another reason why bailing out airlines or helping airlines is important, because if they fail, the rest cannot survive. They bring in the supply of the revenue generators, of the people, of the passengers, of the travelers. And that's another reason why airlines around the world are getting a lot of attention. A, it's highly fixed cost. B, it's extremely perishable and highly at risk. And third, it supports so much of the economy outside of aviation directly. So anyhow, I hope that for all of us in this industry, this nightmare is soon over. I'm sure every airline is doing its best to conserve cash and try to keep the airline still as a going concern, so that once things start returning to normalcy, people can start coming back to work. Spending too much cash now will result in airlines essentially not having enough cash to restart operations. So it's a question of trading off short-term pain with the longer-term job security and stability and survival. And there are no easy answers. It's very, very difficult. So for all of you out there in the aviation industry, hang in there, hope for the best. We're all in this together. And hopefully, a year from now, this will have become a very bad memory. But for the next few months, we need to tighten our belts and be prepared for tough times to continue for some more time. So take care and see you tomorrow.